And thank you everyone for joining us. We are just going to have an awesome hour of talking esports and academics. And I'm the host, Katrina Adkins. Just a little bit about me. I've been in education over 20 years, actually started as a kindergarten teacher. And in all honesty, I thought that's what I was going to do forever. My mom taught kindergarten for over 30 years. My aunt taught first grade, and for as long as I could remember, that's what I wanted to do. And so it quickly turned into wanting to get more and more involved with technology. And so moved into teaching a few other different grade levels, then into K-5 computers, into 6th and 9th computer science, 9 through 12 computer science, and I actually continue to still teach and teach college at a number of different universities online, teach gaming and esports. So really happy to still have my foot in the door and still get to work with students. So I'm now with a company called the USAEL, United States Academic Esports League, and just super excited to talk with these experts that we have on here today to talk esports. And so I suspect that we have folks on here who are brand new to esports, all the way up to you probably already have esports in your school, and that's okay because we're going to have a wide variety of things that we're going to talk about today, and I think everybody will have kind of a piece of that and be interested in all those areas. So to start us out, I would like to introduce our panelists, starting with Christopher Turner. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Katrina.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll go through the gauntlet of I've been in education right now for right at 15 years. Started out in K through 12 as a graphic and visual arts teacher, oddly enough. Transitioned through a few schools, landed on Southern University. Southern University is located in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. It's an HBCU. It's the only HBCU system in the country. So that afforded me a bigger and broader net. On the Baton Rouge landmass, we have a pre-K through 12th grade school that I founded and started the program there and launched the room. And then we have an undergraduate, we have a law center, and we have an ag center. Now I'm the director over the Mixed Reality Institute, Virtual Innovation, Gaming and Esports Institute, at Southern University Law Center, where we expose underrepresented communities to those said titles within the title of the Institute through research, programming, and coursework.
Love it. Thank you so much. And then next up, we have Dr. Robbins. Great to see you. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Katrina. And it's awesome to see you and awesome to finally meet and hear from Christopher. I've been following him for a while on social media. So I'm in the presence of greatness today. I'm really happy to be here, and I'm really honored that you thought of us. So this beautiful community behind me is the Brigantine community, located right outside of Atlantic City, New Jersey. We are a pre-K to 8 district. And, similar to Chris, I did start out in the education field as a teacher, the high school level, and then moved on up to different administrative ranks, and then had the pleasure and the honor of being the superintendent here for the last 3 going on 4 years here at Brigantine. And, for us, we created an esports team in the height of the pandemic, of the lockdown, when we saw all the kids talking for the first time, really conversing. And we said, why can't we do something like that? So we went virtual for a while, and then we said, let's build something amazing for them. And we've done so. So we'll talk about that a little bit more as we get into the conversation. But really, like I said, really excited, honored to be here and represent Brigantine and talk about all the great things we're doing for the K to 8 kids here.
I love that. Your students are so lucky to have you, that's for sure. And I love that you brought up the social media factor, because that's how I met both of you years ago on social media. And I'll tell you, some of my best friends I have met online, and the fun part about going to conferences is we always, get to see one another. So it's great to share this time with both of you today and talk about, one of our favorite topics, which is esports. And so I want to start out with a question, and I'll pose this to both of you, and we'll start with Chris. But what is all the hype about? Why elementary or middle and high school esports? Why are we bringing esports to K-12 students? What is all this hype?
I think it's I think it's college and career pathways. I think it's meeting the students where they are, and I think at this point in time, us as peers and people that deal within esports every day, we stick to those three, and it just makes sense. And meeting the students where they are, you got to understand they game. I tell people all the time that we're probably one generation from the whole household being gamers, because definitely everybody that's on this panel and are gamers of some sort. And so focusing on the college and career pathways, if you think about it, everything is going, technical technology is moving at an extreme rate, especially with AI and the metaverse and VR and mixed reality, everything like that. So education as we know it is changing. And so if we're going to keep the students engaged, if we're going to have them, at bay to listen and learn, you have to meet them where they are, point blank, period.
I love that. The thought of meeting students where they are. And of course, that looks different year after year. I mean, especially, moving through education as the three of us have done, that has changed over the years. So, Glenn, what do you think? What up in New Jersey, what's all the hype with esports? What's going on there in Brigantine?
Yeah, so I think, Chris really explained it very, very well. For us, it's younger kids and they play video games. And like we said, when the pandemic really happened, it was really exposed to who all the gamers truly were. And even if you weren't a gamer, now you jumped on because it was a way to talk to your neighbor that you usually play the street with, whatever it may be. And then it's evolved. But for us, we started seeing like this interconnectivity of these kids. Like we're always saying, well, they're on their phone, not talking to each other. Well, they're talking to each other more than we ever did face to face. So I think that's part of the big hype, is seeing those social skills being developed over that time. I'm seeing the sports aspect of it being developed. I'm seeing the sportsmanship aspect being developed about it. And then going all the way up to the collegiality ranks that Chris had mentioned, where he's at and so forth. It's rather impressive when you look at his resume and talks about, the law school aspect of what esports is. So when parents always say, oh, you stop playing video games, or it's just a video game thing. Now I can mention, hey, I was on a panel with a gentleman who works at a university that does law about esports, and that's just getting started. But, like you see, and we could say a bunch of times, when esports comes on TV, it is the most watched sporting event on TV, except for the Super Bowl. That's really impressive. And, when we were trying to develop our esports arena, it took a while because everything was on back order because the whole world wanted to buy video game consoles or some type of technology device that utilized chips and or pieces in that technology that were back ordered and so forth. So it's there. I think it's been there. To Chris's part, the families are gamers. Yeah, whether you started out with the old Commodore 64 or the Atari or the Nintendo, there's always been some type of piece of getting involved to be maybe away from yourself for a while. Maybe it's part of meditation. Maybe it's just to be a different person for a while and take a mental break from our world that we're in too.
I love that. I was actually going to age ourselves here and ask what your first gaming console was. I'm not afraid. Mine was Atari. I got, Pac-Man, Frogger, I'm old, but what do you remember from growing up, Chris?
Definitely snuck in. So I have a brother that's 7 years older than me. Definitely snuck on his Atari. My personal first system was the first Nintendo though, that I didn't have to share with my older brother.
Yeah,
I had that older sister, so I understand that word snuck. You had to, sneak to use it. I get it. Glenn, what about you?
We had the Atari, and then we moved up to the Nintendo, and love that. I had a younger brother, 18 months younger than me. So, but I remember, the Duck Hunt power pad,
Yeah.
you know, running the track meet on the pad itself. But
Yeah.
I remember just, like I said, fun days that you could have inside the house on bad weather days. I always enjoyed being out of the house. My brother played video games like there was no tomorrow, and he beat the Nintendo games in 3 or 4 days. So, you know, it's always been something that we could take elsewhere too. That was kind of cool for the first time. We could take it, you know, to our grandparents' house or take it down the shore or take it wherever it may be. So, but it's kind of comical to really date ourselves. I put one up, the old Nintendo up in my garage, and we were playing it with my neighbor who's also my age. And my son came in, this is a few years ago. My son and his kids came in and said, "Why is the game all glitchy?" And we're like, "Dude, you don't even understand how high tech this is." And we're playing, you know, ice hockey, you know, and so forth. So it's come a long way, but we definitely dated ourselves, Katrina.
I know, and it's so funny you say about, you know, being glitchy. It's so funny that this big draw now is Minecraft. You know, when you talk pixelation and those types of things. I was blown away when Minecraft first came out. Like, what is the draw to this? But you know, it's interesting. So, well, thank you. Yeah. So I would love to move on to another question here. And for this question, I am going to share with the audience a picture, because I would like to know what you see in this picture. What do you suspect is happening, and what are some things that you notice? We'll jump back over to Chris here to start.
If I'm not mistaken, this is the first esports event that ever
Sure
took place.
is.
I'm not gonna say what date where they were. I'm gonna let the audience go look that up right quick. But I mean, it's a dated picture, but it's the same. The only thing you're missing is the main stage that you see in some arenas and some colleges now. But for the most part, a lot of the labs, like in high school and middle schools, and even, you know, now elementary schools, are pretty much the same. It's a screen, tables, and a system or a PC, and you have spectator seats. And I would guess, you know, the ones that are standing behind are the tournament organizers, keeping score, keeping bracket, that type of thing. But this picture says a lot.
What do you see, Glenn?
Very much the same with Chris sees, but I also see a lot different nowadays compared to what our gamers are now. Like, you know, the individuals playing, you know, we have an extremely diverse clientele and team and population in our district. And I'm looking at this and I don't see anyone of color, anyone of female, you know, and I don't know what their, you know, emotional intelligence are, their IQs are, but for us, it doesn't matter what you look like, who you are, what you like, whatever. If you can game, you game, and you work together. So, but you know, to Chris's point, you know, you see kids here in front of these screens, and you know, there is a big fan base behind them. You know, I look at this and I also think of the old movie Pixels, you know, that came out with Adam Sandler, where they were playing the retro and they're sending it to space, like so.
Definitely Ataris.
They are. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, Glenn, because that was one of the first things I noticed. Like, where are the girls? I don't see any. You know, and that is something that we still kind of struggle with today, and I think for a number of different reasons. But you know, getting females involved, and it's something that, of course, you know, as a female, that I definitely pay attention to, and want to make sure that we get more and more females involved with esports, with STEM in general, with CTE, those areas. So I wonder if you look straight in the middle, there's an older gentleman. And I wonder if that maybe is a professor or a teacher or something. And, you know, it could be like, you know, one of you, the star teacher that saw the benefits in this, you know, or saw that this could bring something to students. And, you know, I don't know, you can, you know, guess on all this stuff, but it makes me wonder. So a lot of times people ask me, you know, how do I find an esports coach for my program? And I often say, honestly, you don't even really need somebody who knows all there is to know about games. Just if you have somebody that cares about kids and understands the vision, you know. So has that been a struggle kind of in the collegiate space at all, Chris, in terms of coaching, and how do you, how do you go about finding coaches and in the
Yeah,
collegiate space? Yeah.
I think in collegiate, we're in that development space where you have programs that are really competitive. Like that's the epic center of that program is competitive. And then on the other side of it, you have programs that lean more towards diversity, equity, and inclusion, making sure females have a place, or people of color, different races, and it's more of a community-based program. And you might have programs that are student-led that pretty much don't have coaches at this point in time because, like I said, we're still in development. So those are the three programs that I see like repetitive. I think we're at a spot where, in the next few years, the students that I'm teaching right now are probably going to graduate, in the next, 1 to 2 years. They're probably going to want to come back to said colleges, and I'm starting to see it already, and be, assistant directors or esports coaches in said games. And I think from the standpoint of just competitive, esports being competitive video gaming, I'll say this and pass it along. We're at a space now where, with deans and chancellors and presidents still really don't understand it fully to the point where they can say, okay, so Chris, you're a director. But it's almost like being an athletic director because Fortnite could be football, Rocket League could be basketball. And so it's different disciplines and different meta and different strategies that I might not have the time to keep up with and coach each individual team. It's that hectic when you really focus on competitive, at a college level. And like I said earlier, I'm only a year out of K through 12. And so even seeing in that facet, you have educators that are passionate about esports to see those college and career pathways and see what Glenn was talking about earlier as far as, your social, emotional learning and, your soft and hard skills that you learn in any other sport, right? Or any other club, you're getting that within those gaming or esports clubs. And so, finding a teacher that is just passionate about students, not necessarily being able to coach, is really important to keep those programs thriving.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I'm glad you came back, circled back around to that social emotional learning because, one of the barriers to entry, I think, for K-12 esports is everybody in the district having an understanding of the benefits of it and of, the social emotional learning benefits of it. And I so often hear, oh, my superintendent, they just doesn't get it. Or, my principal just doesn't see, or understand, or the parents don't see or understand. And, and there's so much conversation too around, kids aren't social anymore. Well, they are. They're social in a different way now.
It's just different.
And it is. And so, that kind of makes me wonder, Glenn, as a superintendent and leading the charge for esports, I mean, your district is so lucky to have this leader that sees and, you saw the vision for esports and what it could bring to students. And so, what would you say if there's folks on here that are brand new to esports, where do they start? What should they think about first? And maybe how can esports enhance their academic environments that they have right now?
That's a really great question. And I'm going to be honest, it's not an easy push. It depends on where you are. I have some friends that work in some incredible school districts, but they're, ultra traditional because it's been successful for years. So why are we going to change that? I think it's like anything else. It's how you sell it, and it's your vision and what's your passion to it and so forth. So for us, it's having the conversation with the board. The board represents the constituents in the community. And it's, you've already had the conversation with the kids. You've already, they want to play. So the next part is having that conversation with the board and getting their input. What are their concerns? And expressing to them what benefits are going to come out of this? And Chris touched on a lot of that. What are all the new career paths that are coming out of this of esports, and what can it continue to develop? Then it's like, all right, are you going to, it's like building a brand new football stadium or a brand new soccer field. Are you going to make it actually a real regulation size field? And then compare that to the esports. Are you just putting it in a room in the corner that hasn't been used for years and you're going to get a bunch of old computers or whatever it may be? Or are you going to truly invest in these kids and make a spot for them? If we're talking about all means all and all inclusivity, then, just giving them a room doesn't do enough. You really got to push into that you support them and you love them and you want the best for them, because ultimately that's what's going to grow the program. It's like anything else. You play on a really bad football field or whatever it may be, there's no pride to that. There's no, building of tradition to that. So for us, my recommendation is to have those conversations with your board members, but you've already had to do the homework. You already have to have your vision in place where you're going to go. Talk about the league you're going to join. It's not just playing, it's whatever it may be. The league for us, we use Garden State League, which has been wonderful for the individuals to put this together. A great friend of mine that leads this, I'm sure as well as both of you, but it really helps walk the coaches through it. And it gives guide sheets and so forth about what can they play, what, is it all violence? No. And then you talk about the team building, you talk about the sportsmanship, you talk about the social emotional aspect, giving kids a place to go that he or she may have never been on a team before. So for me, when I'm seeing this, and you talked about the coaches earlier, you're going to push the emphasis that you're going to get a coach that's going to teach people to work together. You watch some gamers, they get furious and they'll throw their controller or they start talking smack. Look, how many times has a school administrator had to deal with something that happened on social media and or a video game that comes into school the next day because someone threatened somebody or said something they shouldn't have said? Now you're getting ahead of that curve saying, hey, we're going to teach these kids how to actually properly talk to one another on a team instead of, just talking smack and then really getting into situations that you shouldn't get into, become cyber harassment and bullying and all those other awful things that happen in the world. So for us, it was pushing on that, the cyber awareness and so forth. And then we talked about, hey, let's tie this into CTE more. How about we buy computers that we can take apart and put back together, and the kids have to do that. So when a video, card goes, it's getting older or whatever it may be, the kids have to now do the hands-on hardware, not just the software. So it's teaching them software, it's teaching them the software, the hardware, teaching them teamwork, it's teaching them so many great things. But ultimately, if you're going to invest into this, do it right. If you go halfway, the kids are going to go halfway. The kid is not going to last. It's not going to be built something that they need to be. And for us, we created such a safe haven space for regardless of who you are as an individual. They just want to be there at a game and be with their friends and have an opportunity to be like any other kid, be trusted, believed in, respected, and represent the school in a whole nother way that they've never had a chance to do.
I absolutely love it. It's so heartwarming just to hear you talk about it. And in all honesty, we could almost separate out all those pieces and have a multi-day conversation around all of those pieces, because it is tough. How do you decide what hardware? How do you find a space within your district to house their field to play on? I always say that, why did the basketball players or the football players get a field or a court, and there's not a place for our esports students? So, I love all these pieces to the puzzle. So, I don't want to go down too much of a rabbit hole here, and you all will know what I'm meaning as soon as I bring this up. But you mentioned leagues. And how do I, that you're a part of Garden State, and Garden State Esports is amazing. And so, the word though that you use that I want to emphasize is support, and how Garden State Esports supports you. And so how does someone kind of sift through everything, all this movement going on in academic esports? How does someone sift through and find the right place to be? Chris, what do you think about that?
Yeah, stay off of social media and do your research yourself. Everybody has strong opinions. Some are valid, some are not. But it's a lot of noise. And so, not trying to call any leagues out or Don talk leagues, but I'm a fan of support. I'm a fan of community leads. I'm a fan of putting students first. Where it could benefit the students, I'm all for it. If you want to get strongly competitive and you want to go through, a bracket, a regional bracket, then do nationals. 9 times out of 10, you're going to have to pay for that. And Glenn could probably tell you how much from a district budget, what that looks like. Per school, it might not look that bad, but when you're talking about district dollars, it's a lot. It's a lot for a district or a school to pay for that. It's a lot for parents to pay for that. Because like I said before, we're still in the stage of development where we have many leagues out here, and you're gonna have to do your research. You're gonna have to make sure that you're advocating for the students, and everything that's shiny is not good. It's not golden. And I just strongly believe in student-centered programs and student-centered leagues where the kids are taking away something from it and not just saying, hey, I got a trophy and it only cost me $100 or whatever the fee is. But when you can bring in industry partners and you can give them scholarships and internships, and you can give them life experiences that Glenn has talked about strongly about, that's a win-win for everybody. And I'll pass it to Glenn on this one.
I'll mute myself. I had some noise going on in the background. What's going on? I don't know, Katrina, what do you think? Where do you want me to dive into more, like with the league up and so forth?
Yeah, so what I collectively hear are a lot of different things, and not to necessarily focus on the hardware, the bling, the shiny object that's out there, right? And so that takes me kind of to our next question. How do we look beyond the competition, beyond the game, all the things that are happening behind the scenes that are so amazing for students and often forgotten when schools go to start an esports program, a sustainable esports program. And so two of those areas that I kind of want to focus in on are curriculum and careers. And, why should we care about those? And we can kind of tag on that league conversation if you want to, when doing research, to be looking beyond just that competition. So let's first talk about, a little bit about curriculum. And Glenn, how are you bringing esports curriculum or even STEM, CTE, these areas into the school day or after school, or how do you kind of operate within Brigantine?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we just opened the arena this year after being virtual for 2 years or a year and a half. So we did, how do we get kids involved in here? And the coach that we hired has been fantastic. He's a coach of crew at our school as well. So he already had the coaching experience, and that way he knew about recruiting. He knew about, getting kids involved and so forth. So he would do is open it up during one of our flex periods that we have called Buccaneer time. So if anybody didn't want to go outside for recess, they could go in there and play. And then it was like a recruiting process. And then from there, he's also mathematics. So he's going to start tying in the esports and, the gaming aspect into the mathematics curriculum and so forth. And we're starting to build on that. We're very young on that. I'm not going to be telling you any lies, but very young in regards to where we're going to go with this. But like I said, the things that go on behind the scenes, we had kids that picked out the uniforms. They designed it and then they put it together. They went online, they found the site that could do that with them, went back to the coach and said, can we buy these? And here's what we're going to do. So then they all got their uniforms. And then it was like, all right, how do we design the arena? Same thing when we sat down with the vendors and so forth. And it was like, all right, how do we build this? What does it look like? Yes or no? Do you guys like this? And then it was the mascot, we're the Buccaneers, but the kids wanted to be called the Megalodons. So to me, from the administrative point, like, all right, guys, all of our merchandising is a Buccaneer pirate. Now you're going to go to a Megalodon, and they explained it to me, and they're like, we're going to eat the competition. I was like, all right, you guys have me at Megalodon. We're a beach community. That's awesome. And then they want to change their colors because they want to go red and black, and we're a blue and white school. Once again, I asked them why, and they said, that's our avatar. This is who we are. So think about that for a minute. You know, when we play video games or you're in a social media world, how many fake burner social media things do people have and how many avatars do people have? So, you know, you blend it in, and then obviously the gaming will continue to blend into all the academics as we continue to build on that. But, and then, you know, we tied it into art. We had two of the girls that were on the team last year were the big time artists. They started painting in and coloring the exterior of the arena because they call it the abyss, and that's where everybody's gonna get lost in the abyss. They started painting all water features around the exterior of the room as well. So we tied in the art teachers as well. So like I said, we're just getting started on that. And to Chris's level, a whole nother level of what he's doing. So I definitely want to hear more about that.
Yeah, I agree, Chris. I would love to hear kind of how does this, you know, extend into the collegiate space?
Yeah, it extends, it reaches every degree probably on campus. So we just launched our room last year. Well, we did a ribbon cutting. We're actually gonna fully launch in August, but we've been having programming ever since March of this year. And thank God for having leadership in my chancellor and vice chancellor, and having some funds from COVID. We did a $500,000 room. And so everything from the production equipment that we have, you know, being able to tie into mass comm, you know, being able to do lunch and learns in the space and lectures, not only, you know, from a gaming perspective, but those are transformational skills that you are able to go into different industries with. And, you know, in esports, we call it shoutcasting, but I mean, it's commentary, you know, you're commentating. And so, you know, even that skill set, again, touching mass comm, or even, you know, getting with our nursing department and showing them, you know, these are the stretches that we're doing to not get fatigued and not strain hands and muscles. And I mean, I can go on for days how much gaming esports touches everything. And, you know, to Glenn's point, you know, picking out the right computers, you know, we're able to do accelerators, you know, as far as game development and, you know, different programming that we can do within that room, because we do have the technology in there, you know, our having, you know, VR and metaverse type curriculum. And at the Law Center, we just launched the first ever esports and law certification. And, you know, I think my chancellor and vice chancellor would be mad if I didn't stress how important law is within the facet of not only this industry, but every industry. And like I said, we're still, you know, in that honeymoon phase as far as esports is concerned. And so it's going to be some laws changed. It's going to be some legal acts changed, definitely probably in the near future. But, you know, you need to know what a trademark is and what a copyright is. And, you know, we have a SULC technology center that one of my, you know, coworkers, she runs that department. And so we're already talking about, you know, what does a curriculum look like for streaming music on law, and doing a cohort of students and pretty much putting them through the phase of, you know, starting your LLC, making sure you get, you know, your naming rights and trademarks and copyrights, and how do you fully develop yourself to go to the marketplace. And so, yeah, I'm just fortunate and blessed enough to be in an environment. I think Katrina knows better than Glenn, but it's been a mountain climb to be in a position now where we can really just create and service the community and service the students and like educate the full community and not just the students that we have on the college campus.
Yeah, I just want to add to that, Katrina, too. Like, it's just thinking about what Chris is talking about, the laws and so forth, with the exponential changes that are coming, right? With all the gamers, you have multiple streaming services and so forth. Like, we use Twitch. That was a whole new revolution to teach people here and so forth. But talking about the copyrights, trade rights and so forth, when you put certain things up on there, and then artificial intelligence in itself, like it's, you know, so many things are already outdated within a day. So to be able to keep up with all these different things and then come back from the district side and say, are we in compliance legally, policy wise, you know, what we're trying to do. So thanks, Chris, for sharing that, because it definitely goes
No problem.
behind the scenes with those in things that you just mentioned.
Yeah. I mean, even down to like, you know, us having a room now and like I've been stressing, it's not just for our college community, but it's for the community outside of the walls, even down to us being careful about when we have a certain age range in the building, getting, media release forms because they're going live out to the world. And so, Twitch and YouTube, you have age restrictions about who can stream and who can't. And so knowing all of that legality is really important. And I think we just look at it, we just check the box and we're signing our lives away and everything else. But we just so used to just clicking that box and just going for it that we really don't think about second thoughts about what can happen and what can be shut down or what can be flagged as content that you can't monetize. And that's another thing, as far as K through 12 and collegiate, we got a real chance in monetizing the brand to benefit your program. And I think people are not really thinking about that long term either.
Yeah, absolutely. This also makes me think, for those that are maybe starting a program or, have started one during the pandemic, it takes the whole community to get this going. Like you said, Glenn, it's not just this small thing. And so one of the teams that, definitely can't be, pushed out or sit in a silo is the IT team. And yeah, huge. I've seen so many teams that, they go to start and then they, wait a minute, everything's blocked, or, wait a minute, we don't have access to this. And so, what kind of advice do you have for kind of wrangling up all these different departments and making sure that, everyone is talking to everyone and has a complete understanding? What do you think about that, Glenn?
Well, if your IT person's not your right and left hand right now in today's society, I don't know what you're truly doing. Because it no longer is ed tech separate. It is a commodity each and every day. So for me, and your great points, Katrina, we've seen this, but when buildings went 1-to-1, they wanted to go 1-to-1 and they didn't have the capacity to do it. They never ran it past the IT department, and they get all these computers delivered and they're like, we're not going to be able to turn all these things on. They're all not going to be able to work. They're not going to have connectivity and so forth. So you need to have those extensive conversations well in advance with your IT department, as well as everybody else, as I mentioned. But, you got to make sure you have all the access points to servers, the broadband, and everything else that goes into the building. And then is that you talked about sustainability. Can you sustain that? How long is that going to go before you need to replace all those things? Do you have a plan in place for every 3, 2, 1, 5, how many years you have, to start replacing these as things continue to go on? Chris mentioned about the computers. That's one of the reasons why we went with the brand that we went, to take them apart and put them back together, because it helps with sustainability. I can't buy mega machinery that is amazing that my kid wants at home, that I can't even afford that, to refurbish them or redo them every 3 or 4 years. It's literally impossible on a school budget. So your IT person needs to be every step of the way in that conversation. And like I said, that started with laptops, that started with the esports, and now it didn't even start with the AI, because it's going to be more and more infused going forward into all of our conversations, whether it's policy, whether it's academics, whether it's anything that goes on in your school district.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for that advice. One group that we have not really touched on yet is something that we all have in common: parents. This is, I know for my two, I now have a 19-year-old son, a 17-year-old daughter who have been gamers since forever. In fact, I used to drag them around to conferences with me. They did presentations on Minecraft and all kinds of different stuff. And so it was just something that I always supported. And I saw, the social aspects of it. I saw what it could bring to their lives. And so, but that's not always the case. And so, Chris, you mentioned, talking even outside of the university and outside of the schools into the community. And I know that involves parents. So how do you have those conversations, those tough conversations, especially for those who don't see the vision and don't see what esports can bring?
I mean, you have to have that tough conversation. I mean, going even back, I get asked this question a lot, Katrina. When I was in at the pre-K through 12th grade school. And trust me, we got great coverage, right? We did great things for students. But one of the questions I get asked all the time is, what would you have did different? I would have had parent nights. I would have had educational nights for parents. I would have brought in speakers for parents to educate them on, what the possibilities are. And I guess in my new role, I'm looking at that in a whole different way. So, how do you invite the parents into that arena that Glenn built? And how do you educate them? Because think about it, they're probably around our age. And so they're thinking Nintendo, they're thinking, Atari, they're thinking, oh, it's just a video game, it's counterproductive. They don't see the connectivity to the career paths. And, to be honest, you're talking about careers, and we all know on this panel, you're talking about careers that need people right now, and you're talking about 6-figure jobs, and they can't find a talent. And so, especially with the insurgence of these programs, you're talking about something that they can easily get into. And it won't be a few thousand resumes, it might be only 100. And that makes a big difference when you're talking about sustainability. And so when you start having those type of conversations with parents and exposing them to the possibilities, yeah, on the competitive side, your top 2% is going to make it professional, but you have a whole industry around this, and it's the biggest form of entertainment in the world, and so it's not going anywhere no time soon. And so you're probably going to see different variations of it, but it's not going anywhere. And so I think once we expose parents to that, and we kind of get them out that mindset of traditional sports where, I think we put our youth in traditional sports because, they learn hard and soft skills, and it's a full pipeline, and you're able to see it, and it's been there for years, even decades, right? Multiple decades. But we can't really point to that in esports and show them a real track. So it's up to us as educators to pretty much educate the parents and educate the community. And it looks different in every community, right? And so we just got to be careful with programming, and we got to make sure we set the bar as far as, hey, it's not just about playing a video game. It's not just about winning or hiking up that, that state trophy or community trophy. It's much bigger than that. It's a much bigger ecosystem, and it's a lot at stake if we don't start educating within STEM, like you said, Katrina, and exposing them to the possibilities.
Got it. And, so Glenn, kind of going off of that, how did you address parents, or what do you think are the best kind of tactics or procedures to address parents?
Now, Chris brought up a great point, and I love the reflection piece that he did, talking about what he could do differently. So I really appreciated your authenticity there. I remember being one of the first school districts in New Jersey to be a bring your own device. And it was like letting kids use a cell phone or a tablet or whatever it may be in 5th to 8th grade. And that was educating the parents. That was educating the school board. That was educating the superintendent. That was because, to Chris's point, there have been other activities that people have done for years. And I always equated to driving a car. You learned how to drive a car because probably your mom or your dad or somebody of a loved one taught you. No one taught us generation how to use the cell phone. No one taught us how to use the social media. So for us, it was like, all right, we can either push it to the side and say we don't use this here, or we can, properly show them how it can be done. Because that's the world they live in, not the world that we teach what we used to do. What they're going to go to. And to Chris's point, there's going to be critics out there. There's going to be people that will chirp along the way, but people don't remember the critics. And it's like Winston Churchill said, if you stop and throw a stone at every dog that barked, you'd never get to where you want to go. So, you got to be passionate. You got to be bold in your vision to move that forward. But you also got to celebrate it too. Like Chris mentioned, the athletic programs, like there are programs that have been trophies have been sitting in the trophy case since like 1955, and they're covering cobwebs, but the parents are proud of that, and grandparents are proud of that. Esports is so new, you don't have any trophies up there yet. So for us, it was like, when we won an event, we were advertising, we put it on Twitch, because we knew we couldn't have parents in the building when they were first really getting the gaming pandemic. So we wanted to make sure they could get connected some way. And then when we built the arena, we built an area for parents to be able to watch into the gaming if they wanted to come. So, and like I said, we had some critics along the way, oh, it's just the gamers. But once we put out there that we were in the state finals, that we were competing against high school teams as in a middle school, the community is like, what in the world is going on here? Like, this is pretty cool. I had people randomly coming up to me and say, hey, good luck this weekend to your team that may or may not have supported us before that. I don't know. But the fact that it was out there and we were representing our community at a larger scale, to Chris's point, yeah, like we put it out there nationally or internationally on Twitch and YouTube and, all these other platforms that we have. But once the parents start gathering information that we were representing proudly and we're going to the state finals, anybody here's state finals, their ears perk up and they think about what they grew up with generation wise. So they get all excited about that. But then I think it's also selling the message, selling that message each and every day and building that into programs. So for us, we built a TV studio the last year and a half, and really got kids involved more than ever with the YouTube channel. And they're making all these different promotional videos now for forth that go every day and they broadcast out to the entire international world. But we started highlighting our gamers. We started talking about what this new arena looked like, why you should get involved. And the parents saw that. And we took pictures and we sent it to the local newspaper. So we try to celebrate the kids as much as possible. Because like we said, that's what it's all about. It's about the kids. If we listened to every critic, we would get nothing done. And these kids would have nothing of opportunities and still be lost. Let's think about that for a minute. It really goes back to that picture you showed in the very beginning of that gentleman in the back. You think that was a professor or whatever it may be. That individual had, the ability or the vision and the boldness to move that forward. That's not easy for leaders to do. But that's when you see who a real leader is, that they believe in something for the kids. Because I always say it, you're in it for your kids. And if it wasn't for kids, you wouldn't have a job. So, give them that space, give them that opportunity and celebrate them and make your community proud every step of the way.
Gave me chills. I just love it. Something that too that I think about so often is, I grew up involved in music. In fact, I started as a music major. That's how involved I was. And so often I see students that aren't involved in traditional sports, aren't involved in music, aren't in art or theater or, one of those areas. And I have found that esports has been a place for students that didn't have another place to be. They kind of found their people and found their place. And are those things that both of you are seeing as well?
Yeah, I think so. Like to give you an example, when we went to the state finals and esports does it, our league does it where they go to different universities. I have 5th, 6th, 7th graders going up to universities 2 hours away in our state that had never been to a college before. And like to Chris's part, they saw an arena. It was a multi-million-dollar operation that was amazing. And they were realizing they could actually go for an education now. They could do something that they wanted to do that would be a home for them while getting an education and a collegiate degree. That's the part I look at that gives them that opportunity. It's not just a space for them to be them in our school, but it's also the future, whether it's in law, Chris's school, or whether it's in something else. It's giving them that future and seeing that there are things out there for them that are much grander than just your school alone.
Yeah, I echo Glenn. I mean, I'm thinking about a few students, and my youngest daughter, she's a gamer. I can remember it was less than probably 12 hours of us opening the arena that we have now. And she was sitting on the sofa and we probably was there, it might have been midnight, not a good dad move before school, right? But she looked at me and she was like, Dad, I might stay because we have this room now. One of my students, Nolan, he just graduated from the undergraduate campus. And he said one of his main reasons for enrolling into law school was because of the esports program. And so I have many stories like that. And so when you're talking about, a community within one, esports is that. I think, I tell people all the time, besides food, I think gaming and esports is probably the only, biggest connector other than us enjoying food together. And it's something to see. It's something to witness. It's something to grow with and listen to students grow. And like I said, it's just a wonderful thing to have on any campus, whether you're higher ed or K through 12.
Yeah, and I think it ties into that they can continue the conversations as they grow. Whether they're on Discord or some other type of communication, that's a place for them to go to have their conversations and grow with. I think about one of ours. He really wasn't much of a gamer, but he got interested in the TriCasting and got interested in the announcing of it. And then he really grew up into our TV program. And his mom said, now that's the field he wants to go into now, which is, journalism and communications and/or, be on TV and having those conversations. But to see a 7th and going to the 8th grade kid, going up to random adults when we take them to different conferences that we host. So usually when people speak at a conference, you hear people talk and they're usually the adults. I love taking the kids with us and them showcasing the great things we're doing. But then it gets them to have a conversation saying, Chris, why do you do this and how do you do that? That's 8th grade. I remember when I was in 8th grade, I wasn't having that conversation with an adult.
Well, I didn't even know what a TriCaster was in 8th grade.
So, like I said, there's so many opportunities and so much collegiality and so much, brotherhood, sisterhood, whatever you want to call it, with them working together to something bigger and better in life.
Absolutely. So we are, and thank you both so much for sharing that information. We are about 6 minutes to the hour, and I do want to open up our conversation here to questions. So if you do have a question and you're on in the audience, please feel free to post in the Q&A or in the chat. It looks like we're chatting away over here. So we do have one question actually for Glenn. Glenn, how did you choose the vendor partners? Or who did you partner with or choose to partner with in creating your arena?
Yeah, so to Chris's point, you do your research. So for me, it was going online, and I said, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. I'm seeing universities, I'm seeing high schools that are already doing this, and then for me, it was like, all right, who are the players that are doing this, and can I reach out to them and say, who did you use? And then it goes on to social media, that connectivity. Was reaching out to individuals such as Katrina and others and saying, how can we build something? What companies do you work with? So I hate to say there is no silver bullet, because then you also have to, depending on what your states are, depending on what your budget is, depending on a lot of different paperwork that you have to fill out. It's not an easy process. You might need 2 or 3 different bids. You might need all these other things to go into the BA. You have to go into the cell to the school board members. But research, look around for different schools that already have it, and then call them. Reach out to the coach, reach out to the secretary. Someone's going to get you to somebody that paid that bill and figured out how they made up that arena or space that you're looking to build.
Yeah, and in Glenn's case, I think it was who had supply at the time.
That was a struggle.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that was a struggle. We waited a while, but it just because things were delayed in that time period where you couldn't get anything. The chain supply was real.
Yeah,
I built my K through 12 space too, during the same time. It was bad. I was nervous. I thought that we would never open our K through 12 space at all because of the delays. But I think on another note, Glenn is absolutely right. I think what I did different, and if you have the skill set, I saw somebody in the chat that's a graphic design teacher, I think, building a deck and telling your story, and using all your analytics from social media. I'm talking about from the school account, not your personal, but showing who you are as a community, as a school, as a student-centered organization can go a long way. You can get better deals for the person that's cutting that check, to Glenn's point. And so that's something that we did different during that time. I think that K through 12 room was roughly around $60,000, but my principal only cut a check for $15,000, and that was for computer towers. So it can be done, but you had to be innovative, and you had to be creative enough to get it done that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot of opportunity around, partnerships with local businesses or
Yep.
grants, or, it takes a long time and it takes a lot of organization and a lot of cooperation to build that. And I think that's a beautiful example of, this $60,000 to 15. So it can be done, like Chris said. So I love that. So as we close out today, I definitely want everyone to know how to get a hold of both of you. So, and how to see the abyss. How do we see it? Glenn, where can we go?
Okay, so you can follow me at Glenn R 1809, GLENNR 1809, and on a lot of different social media feeds. You can also follow Brig Schools on the social media, and then on Twitch we are, I believe we're BCS Megs or Megalodon. So Katrina, I'll give that to you, and then you can blast that out to everybody as well. But yeah, just Google us too. We're out there, and we're really proud of what we're doing here.
As you should be. It's absolutely incredible. And Chris, how do we find you?
I'm a simple guy. So LinkedIn is Christopher Turner. And Twitter is my other social. It's Go Play ES. It's the Louisiana way is GEAUX Play ES. And then you can follow Southern University on any platform that's out there. YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Twitter. The Lawson is everywhere.
I love it. Well, thank you so much. I have no idea. It's such an honor to talk with both of you and just to get to hear your stories and the progression from, some of our earliest years on into the collegiate side of things, and, really how we can appreciate esports and really what it's bringing to the lives of students. It's just amazing. So thank you all so much. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. We will make sure that this is available to share out to anyone. Maybe you have to take it to your board of education and have them hear the webinar and understand a little bit more. So this will be available to you. So thank you both so much. And I hope you have a wonderful week. And if I don't talk to you before then, a wonderful start to your new school year. Thank you.